there, I'm Mindy Jensen.
And I am Carl Jensen.
And this is the Mindy
and Carl
on Money podcast, where we talk about what happens after you reach financial independence.
Why do we call this show Mindy on Money?
Because Cashy Carl sounds too much like Trashy Carl.
Wow. Wait, we're talking about financial independence. I might be Mindy independent soon. Trying to find a nice word for...
Mindependent?
Mindependent. Talking about a separation.
We're not talking about a separation.
You just called me Trashy Carl.
I said Cashy Carl sounds too much like Trashy Carl, not that you are Trashy Carl.
Okay. I am kind of trashy, though.
That's not the subject of today's conversation.
Okay.
On this episode of the Mindy
and Carl
on Money podcast, Carl and I apologize profusely for our absence last week and share a peek at what we did during our 12-day road trip.
But before we get started, let's take a quick break. Today's episode is sponsored by the MMMHQ. That is the co-working space that we co-own with Mr. Money Mustache himself. MMM does not stand for Mindy, Mindy, Mindy. Become a member or stop by for one of our events. We will put a link to our meetup group in the show notes and a link to the HQ if you would like to join up.
I would really like to change that from Mr. Money Mustache to Mindy, Mindy, Mindy headquarters.
Okay, if you have a bigger presence than him, we can do that then.
I don't.
Okay.
I would still like to call it. You know what? In my head, I call it Mindy, Mindy, Mindy.
That's fine. Your supporters can call it that.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so join the Mindy, Mindy, Mindy headquarters or just check it out. Okay.
Sounds like a band. Wasn't there a band by that name in the 80s? Tony or something?
Oh, yeah. And the yeahs?
You have to spell your name different every time, like Mindy, Mindy, Mindeee. I don't know. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, for those of you who are left, let's talk about our road trip. Becoming financially independent has changed the way that we travel. First off, we have more time, so we can do it more leisurely. And while I am still working, I have a super sweet remote gig that allows me to travel or do the gig from wherever I'm at. I just record podcasts. All I need is internet and a mic, and I'm good to go. So our most recent road trip took us to the Midwest. Our daughter is the co-president of her school's chapter of Best Buddies, which is a nonprofit that creates opportunities for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And they have a leadership conference every year in Indianapolis, which is conveniently located halfway across the country from us because we are in Colorado, if you are keeping score. Carl thought it would be fun to road trip out there, and our older daughter agreed with him. However, our younger daughter did not. So she and I flew out to meet them in Indy, or as I call it, Mindianapolis.
Mindianapolis, that is a mouthful. Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Are you just sad that you didn't think of it first?
I think I did actually think of that.
You probably did, because I don't normally call things like that. The Mindy van. We don't drive a minivan. We drive a Mindy van. Anyway, so we all met in Mindianapolis.
Yeah, and we took an EV, which makes the trip a little bit more interesting, maybe slightly longer, but not as long as you would think. Older daughter and I jumped in the car. We had one stop in Topeka, Kansas, ate delicious Indian food, which was unexpected. Mindy's holding up the bowl, which we forgot to bring on our road trip. I was going to talk about that a little bit later. The next night, older daughter and I stopped in St. Louis, where we met our friend Kristen, who is a meteorologist. Is that? Yeah.
Yes.
She's a meteorologist, and she's also a big presence in the Phi community in St. Louis, so it was super nice to meet up with her. We stayed at our relative's house, and then the next day we drove out to Mindianapolis and picked you up.
Yes. And we dropped off our daughter at her conference and then went down to Louisville, Kentucky, if you're from there, and Louisville if you're not.
How do you say that word?
Louisville. Yeah.
Okay.
There's a whole lot more letters in there than are pronounced.
I'll never get used to that. It should be spelled like Louvole if they're going to say it like that.
Yeah, they should. But anyway, they spell it Louisville, but if you pronounce it like that, they will laugh at you. Anyway, we met up with our friend Eric Cooper, who is also known as Mr. 72T. At least we call him Mr. 72T.
He was on the show a couple weeks ago. We will put a link in the show notes if you would like to watch his episode. He's a great guy. what did we do in Louisville?
Louisville. We met up. Well, first we went on a hike and we had a lot of, we saw Shakespeare in the Park too. Holy cow.
Yeah.
We did so much stuff in Louisville. Eric knows where everything is and he took us everywhere. We went on a hike where Red River Gorge.
Yes.
Is that what it was called? Red River Gorge, which was beautiful, but also really, really hot and completely uphill, if I recall correctly.
Both ways.
Yeah, both ways. You take 2 steps and all of a sudden it's like a 90-degree angle, 89-degree angle. It was great. But we did have fun with our hike up with Eric and some friends. And then we went to the Choose Fi Louisville meetup.
Yes. And before that, we had a bourbon tasting, which was fun.
Oh, I forgot about the bourbon tasting. I don't know how I could forget. Maybe because I tasted so much bourbon that I forgot about it. We went to which one did we go to? They do Elijah Craig. I can't remember the name of it. Yeah. Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry. It was delicious. Every one they had was delicious.
Someone's name. Yeah. But then after that, we met up with the Choose Fi group.
Evan Williams. We went on the Evan Williams tour and it was delicious.
That's great. And then we met up with the Choose Fi group. We had dinner and drinks with them. And then we walked across the bridge to Indiana, or do I have to call it Mindiana because I'm talking to you?
Yes. Walked across the bridge to Mindiana and then back again.
Yeah, it was great. And then the next day we went and picked up our kid and had lunch with another friend who I probably go quite a ways back with this guy. He connected with me through my blog, 1500 Days. And I've had a lot of email chats with him over the years, and I finally got to meet him in person. Dan was super cool. Thank you for lunch, Dan. You're a great human.
And not just because you bought us lunch. You're just a great human in general. And I think that is a great place to bring up a quote from our friend Keith Nugent, who says, "Fi is better with friends." And that's what this whole trip was about, really. Reconnecting with our friends.
Yes, we're going to talk about that a little bit more, why that's such a powerful thing. But yeah, this whole trip was centered around people we knew for the most part, because right after we met up with Dan, we went to Michigan and met up with the Physician on Fire, who famously created the Fat Fire Facebook group. Leave is a super great guy. We've known him for years. We first met up with him at his house when he lived in Minnesota. And now we got to see his new house in Michigan, which was super neat. So beautiful up there.
Yeah, we had like the best Mother Nature trying to entice us to move back to the Midwest weather the whole time we were there. It was so beautiful. And I kept saying to Carl, I don't remember it being this temperate. I thought it was hotter and more humid. It turns out it is. We just got a respite when we were there. I think Mother Nature was trying to get us to come back.
Yeah, I don't know. It was 100 here yesterday, and I looked up where Leaf lives, and it was like 77.
Okay, but it's also going to be like 95.
I don't know. I
with
think
95% humidity. Anyway, we went up to Michigan. It was lovely. However, that day was our worst travel day because it was too long. We decided that we were going to go from Louisville, Kentucky to midway through Michigan. And instead, about 2 hours outside of where we were supposed to be, we're like, I'm going to call it. We got to go. It's like 10 o'clock. We're exhausted. We need to go to bed. I don't want to pull into their house at midnight. And it was just too much. We should have broken the day up into 2 days.
Yes, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But I still can't get past this pronunciation of Louisville. I think I'm just going to call that Mindyville. That would probably make you happy anyway, right?
Yeah, I'm totally happy with that. Okay. We don't even know any people named Lewis.
Should we petition Longmont to rename it to Mindymont?
Already done.
We have alliteration there. That'd be pretty good.
Yeah.
Mindymont.
Yeah, I've already requested.
Okay.
I haven't heard back yet, but any day.
Yes.
So while we were in Michigan with the Physician on Fire, they hosted a beer tasting with us and several of their other friends. So we made more friends. Friends of friends become your friends when you're traveling. It was a super lot of fun. And then we got up and went to Madison, Wisconsin. We took the ferry across Lake Michigan, which was super cool. And while we were in Madison, we went to the world's best farmers market, which is on Saturdays from like May to October. around the Capitol building in Madison. If you find yourself there on a Saturday, go, because it's the best farmers market ever. And we went to another Choose Fi meetup.
Yes, super cool. We met on the shores of Lake Mendota. Such a nice day. It wasn't hot. The sun was setting. Super cool.
Yeah, it was a really great event. Thank you for hosting, Jen. It was lovely.
Yes, can't wait to make it back. And come see us when you make it to Colorado.
Yes, and we met a lot of really interesting people who are either retired or on their way to retirement or trying to figure out what the next stage of life is, and just had a lot of really great conversations. So, it can be really hard to make friends as an adult. When Carl and I look around, almost all of our friends are members of the Fi community. And we continue to make new friends as adults with people who travel to our city, but we also join Choose Fi local groups for the cities that we're going to be traveling in so that we can continue to meet new people who don't happen to be coming through Longmont. And, before we joined this community, before Choose Fi created local groups, we didn't really have a way to make new friends as adults. Like, you're already set in your ways. Everybody's got their own friends. And yeah, you move to a new neighborhood and you might make a new friend as a neighbor. But it's really, really hard. Whereas the Fi community just opens up and you already have money in common. So that's out of the way and you just find all these other commonalities. And I suppose it would be that way in real life too, but real life, like the Fi community isn't real life. But it's just somehow different.
Yeah, I think it is different. The interesting thing is you mentioned how we all have money in common, so that leads to a bunch of other things that we have in common, but we hardly ever talk about money at these events. Like at the Choose Fi meetup in Madison, did we talk about money at all? Like, we talked about camping, we talked about playing instruments, we talked about the farmers market, live music, different stuff in Madison, but I don't know if money ever came up, which is interesting because that was the whole reason we were there. That is what brought us all together, is that. Yet, I don't know, did we talk about money at all? What am I missing?
We might have glanced on it, but we didn't really have any deep conversations about money. Not that we're not excited to talk about money. Clearly, we do it all the time. But it seems like that's not the topic of conversation. So if you are going to a meetup or you're thinking about going to a meetup, but maybe you're concerned that it's just going to be all this money talk, it's not. I haven't been to a meetup that was solid money.
I think this is a really great point because we don't talk about money because money is just an enabler. It allows us to do all these other things that are much more interesting and much more fun than talking about a stupid index fund. We end up talking about all the things that the money and the financial independence movement allow us to do with our lives, which is super cool.
Yeah, I think we maybe have talked about index funds that we were investing in, but not a deep dive into it. Certainly not debating.
Yeah. But I do feel fortunate. It feels like we have friends all over the world. I'm trying to think of the last time we traveled and went anywhere that we didn't meet up with someone we knew. And this makes travel a lot better. We'll talk a lot about this in a moment. But yeah, I think we're very fortunate. And this works the other way too. We always have interesting people coming to Longmont. Tonight we're hosting a potluck at the HQ. We have our old friends Dan and Cindy coming back. You have some friends you met on the cruise who are going to be at the HQ tonight.
I'm super excited about that. They'll be on the show eventually as well.
Yeah, it's so neat to have all these people coming through our town too. That's almost as good.
Yeah, and I mean, we've got a king-size bed a queen-size bed in our basement that currently doesn't have anybody in it. So if you're coming through Longmont, email Mindy at MindyOnMoney.com or Carl at MindyOnMoney.com. Actually, email Carl so I get the surprise because you never actually tell me. Is anybody coming to Slate tonight?
Dan actually asked, and I gently redirected him because we're not quite set up at the moment. He has a plan B, which I steered him to.
Oh, I don't care if he comes over.
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay. Yeah, Dan's probably going to end up sleeping over. So this was our second road trip of the summer. Our first road trip was to Alaska, well, I mean, we didn't road trip all the way to Alaska, to Seattle, where we took a cruise up to Alaska and then came back and then continued our road trip. It was my second road trip in the Tesla, and I'm pleasantly surprised. And also, Tesla, you need to start promoting your charging network because it's really amazing. And I think you would boost sales infinitely if you would just promote the fact that you can get from coast to coast with the charging network. You're not left high and dry in any part of America, right? Okay, maybe there's like way out in the middle of nowhere reaches, like maybe way north Montana where there's no people either.
Yeah, all the main corridors they do have, but one interesting thing, the part of northeastern, I don't want to say the location, but there was one part of the country we were in that had actually no charging stations, and it was okay because our friend had a charger in their garage, and we could have just plugged it into an outlet as well. But you can go most places. All the major highways within the U.S., the travel corridors are covered.
Okay, there we go. So yeah, if you want Tesla information, ask Carl, not me. But anyway, we went on a road trip in June, and we stayed with my aunt one night. We stayed with a friend another night. We stayed with a listener of the Bigger Pockets Money podcast one night. And we went to a meetup in Seattle where we saw a ton more people and met a ton more people. And now we have a bunch of new friends.
Yeah, again, super cool.
Very, very cool. So, Carl, what tips do you have for people on a road trip?
Ooh. My first one is try not to drive more than 300 miles in a day.
What's the travel time travel mileage between Louisville, Kentucky and wherever we went in Michigan?
Like almost 600.
Almost 600. So what was that first tip? Don't drive more than 300 miles in a day?
Yeah, that was a mistake. And this tip comes from that experience correctly.
Okay.
That was a mistake. Yeah, I like to take travel slow. It's nice to get to a place and have some built-in time to mess around. Or if you see an interesting brown sign on the side of the road or a museum. We stopped at the Farm Toy Museum on our last trip in Iowa because we had the time to see it. We had built in a little bit of extra time.
I forgot about that. Yeah, we also saw the Farm Toy Museum in Iowa.
Dyersville, Iowa. Shout out to Iowa.
Yes. And if you like farm toys, holy cow, do they have farm toys. They've got every toy tractor ever made, I think.
Yeah, super cool.
If you're into toy tractors, it's super cool.
Yep. I get the feeling that one of us is not into toy tractors.
Ooh, yes, you are correct.
I should have brought mine. It's right upstairs.
Oh, my goodness.
I'll bring it for our next podcast. It would probably get along good with the bull if you're watching on YouTube. We have our little bull from New York City. We got to bring this on our trips and take pictures with it.
We do.
It's going on our cruise. We're going to go on the Phi cruise in February, and the bull is going to come on the cruise with us. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see what we're talking about. And
if you want to join us on our cruise, go to amberlygrant.com/cruise. That's Amberly, AMBERLYGRANT.com/cruise.
Do you think we should get a little Speedo for the bull? Because
yes, he is very inappropriate.
His bull bits are hanging out, if you know what I mean.
Why are you talking about that? We don't have time.
Okay, real quick. I have my neon orange leopard print Speedo, and maybe I'll get a matching one for the bull.
I am so buying you a neon orange leopard print Speedo, and you better wear it on the cruise.
Watch out for the hot tub.
Yeah, ew.
Do you have a cucumber I can borrow?
Stop!
Moving on, our next point, if we haven't talked about this enough, planning travel around friends is very, very satisfying. And this is actually a lot of how we travel now. I mean, there's little benefits which aren't why we do it, like free housing. You've got a cool local to show you around. But the main thing is, I think a good conversation with an old friend is better than looking at a mountain or whatever is in that town. Of course, you want to see those sites, but I think the friendships, the conversations, and maybe seeing those with friends is a lot better than just going to some place where you might not know anyone.
Tip number 2, try to maintain a normal routine, including fitness. So if you are...
Actually, that was tip number 3, but...
Thanks. Tip number 2, 3.
Counting is hard.
Counting is hard. Tip number 3, try to maintain a normal routine, including fitness. And many hotels will have gyms, Planet Fitness is $10 a month and is nationwide, I believe.
Yeah.
They have showers too, which is awesome. Or you can do like Carl did and bring weights and a kettlebell and exercise at the charging stations, much to the embarrassment of 17 and 14.
Were you embarrassed by my fitness practices at the Tesla charging stations?
I just didn't watch.
Okay.
My thought process is nobody here knows me. And if they do, they'll say hi and they'll know you too and they'll know what a weirdo you are and they won't think anything of it.
Yeah, my thought process is I don't care. They're on their phone, sitting in their car, scrolling through social media, doing something not great for their body or brain. I don't know. It's kind of like...
Judgy?
Yeah, I guess I'm a little judgy. Meanwhile, I'm next to them, like swinging the kettlebell, doing my curls and push-ups.
Show them your guns.
I don't really have any guns, so I'm not going to flex. But yeah, and then we found gyms, and there's always a way to work out on the road. And I think it's really important to keep up your routine because once you let it go, it's hard to get back on that ship.
Yes, it is. Tip number 4, pack your own food to eat, especially if you want healthy food because truck stop food is not healthy.
No.
You're going to just call it not healthy and move on. Our daughters have, since they were like 5, one of their favorite snacks in the car is just a bag of lettuce. It's iceberg lettuce with, some cabbage and carrots in there. It's not the pinnacle of health, but you know what it isn't? Potato chips.
Yep. Yeah, I've never actually eaten that roller food at a truck stop. Have you?
No, but there's a couple of things that look like so tempting.
Someday I'm going to go for it because it does look, I know it's a very bad choice and probably doesn't taste that good, but someday I'm going to go for it. Maybe a taquito or...
Yes, the taquito. That's what I was thinking too.
One of those roller meats. Maybe we'll get a sampling. We'll get like 3 things and we'll share them. And then hopefully our hotel's nearby with a bathroom.
Ugh, stop. Why does it always go to toilet humor?
It's not humor. It's just I'm being a realist here. I don't know how
Everybody knows how that works, so you don't have to bring it up.
I don't know how that food's going to affect me. I have a delicate stomach.
Maybe don't eat it then. Oh, no, not that. That's way too smart. So if you're planning a trip, check out choosefy.com/local to see if there's going to be a meetup where you're going or if there's one near you. And if there isn't, you can email feedback@choosefy.com to get a local group started.
Yeah, and I'd love to hear any tips you have for road trips as well. What are we missing? There was a couple others we did. We used to cook food on the exhaust manifold.
Oh, we did that once.
We cooked food on the exhaust manifold, that's a hard word.
It's not that hard.
Mindy fold of the car. We call that carbequing, but now we have an EV.
We don't call that carbequing. That's what it's called.
We have an EV, so we can't do that anymore. I know how much you liked it.
We did that once.
Yeah, it didn't work out so hot because the food wasn't so hot.
All right, so share your tips by emailing Mindy at mindyonmoney.com or Carl at mindyonmoney.com, or you can join our Facebook group where we have lots of fellow FI freaks just like you to talk about all the things. And you can find that at facebook.com/groups/mindyonmoney.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Oh, we never apologized for missing last week. We are so sorry we missed last week. Our life is really busy and we're working on calming it down, but we kind of suck at that. So we decided last minute that we were just not going to record anything. Not that we were happy about that. But anyway, 10,000 apologies from me and another 14 from Carl that we missed last week. We will never leave you hanging again.
Until next week.
Stop. We're going to have a show next week, too. Don't listen to him.
Bye.